last year in my speech at the Hall of Fame. Perception is reality. And, you know, I think sometimes he may have forgotten that, but don't let what we're doing at night get in the way of business. I mean, that was a.
What if the one-man army who walked through the mist was actually walking a script he didn't write? In a world where wrestlers break free, sue, and cash out, the bond between The Undertaker and Vince McMahon is a strange, almost mythical loyalty, so deep that it's been called a socio-political anomaly. But behind that shadow-cloaked partnership lies a secret that the dead man himself finally opened up. From the birth of his iconic persona to the chaotic Monday Night Wars, The Undertaker has been the conscience, the anchor, the silent pillar of McMahon's empire. Yet in recent years, the weight of allegations and the high stakes of the WWE's future have pushed their relationship to its breaking point. In today's video, we dive into the reveal. What was Vince McMahon forcing Mark Calaway to do for the WWE? The answers will shock, the drama will ignite, and the truth will redefine the legend of the dead man. Stay tuned. This is the moment The Undertaker finally lifts the veil. In the annals of professional wrestling, an industry steeped in carnival spectacle, a revolving door of performers, and a perpetual tension between promoters and talent, the 35-year partnership between Mark William Calaway, known worldwide as The Undertaker, and Vincent Kennedy McMahon, the chairman of the ring, stands as a singular socio-political anomaly. Unlike the usual narrative where a wrestler leaves, sues, and later reconciles for a payday, the Calaway-McMahon bond has endured a continuous, unbroken arc of devotion that transcends the simple employer-employee contract. To understand this partnership, one must look beyond friendship and examine it as a complex corporate and psychological symbiosis, tracing the genesis of the Undertaker intellectual property, the turbulence of the Monday Night Wars, the creative gambits of the Attitude Era, and the recent legal and ethical storms that have battered McMahon in 2024 and 2025. From this lens, Calaway emerged not merely as a top draw, but as the stabilizing conscience of McMahon's empire, a loyalty that has been tested, perhaps to its breaking point, by the serious allegations leveled against McMahon in his twilight years. The story begins in 1990, a time when the world of wrestling was still dominated by the WWF's grandiose showmanship and a limited pool of big men who could command a stage. Calaway was then a journeyman wrestling under the name Mean Mark Callis in WCW, a career that was unremarkable and constrained by the era's preference for the towering bodybuilder archetype. Think Hulk Hogan or Ultimate Warrior. He sought entry into the WWF, but he did not arrive as a coveted prospect. When Vince McMahon first watched Calaway's performance, a match against Lex Luger at the Great American Bash, McMahon's initial reaction was dismissive. The footage was marred by a dislocated hip that Calaway fought through, and McMahon, accustomed to the muscular ideal, saw in Calaway only another tall basketball-type wrestler with nothing special. This moment of bias marked the beginning of a relationship that would later defy its origins. The turning point came when McMahon, instead of rejecting Calaway outright, recognized an opportunity to create a new character. The Undertaker was a concept devised by McMahon, a Western mortician villain impervious to pain, capable of challenging the prevailing hero Hulk Hogan. The Undertaker became McMahon's intellectual property, and the person who would embody it had to suppress his own identity to maintain the mystique of kayfabe. The first appearance at Survivor Series 1990 cemented this partnership. Calaway's stoicism validated McMahon's vision, and the two found a dynamic where the promoter was the creator and the performer the vessel. The mid-1990s brought the most volatile period in wrestling history. the Monday Night Wars. WCW, backed by Ted Turner, aggressively lured WWF talent with guaranteed contracts. During this era, the WWF teetered on the brink of financial ruin after losing stars like Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and eventually Bret Hart. The Undertaker became the franchise anchor, refusing offers from WCW and citing a debt of honor to McMahon. He formed the Bone Street Crew, a backstage faction that countered the disruptive clique led by Shawn Michaels. In locker room politics, Calloway emerged as a mentor, a big brother, whose loyalty transcended business and became a matter of personal honor. McMahon, in turn, entrusted him with sensitive creative directives, knowing that Calloway would execute them without ego-driven pushback. The relationship's depth shone brightest during the Attitude Era, particularly in 1999, when The Undertaker adopted a cult leader persona, leading the Ministry of Darkness. He terrorized McMahon and his family, burning a teddy bear, stalking Linda, abducting Stephanie for a black wedding, all in service of a higher power that would later be revealed to be McMahon himself. The reveal, "It's me, Austin," was a theatrical twist that consolidated top heels into one faction, the corporate ministry, and reinforced the central narrative of Austin versus McMahon. Critics and even Calloway later regarded the storyline as a creative misfire, a convoluted logic that sacrificed The Undertaker's mystique for the greater financial imperative of the company. Yet it also demonstrated McMahon's absolute command over the character and his willingness to sacrifice The Undertaker's individuality for the company's bottom line. The Undertaker's streak, the concussion that brought him to the brink of retirement, and the father-son dynamics that unfolded in the later years of his career only deepened the complexity of this partnership. Calloway's refusal to retire, his return in 2023 after a 3-year hiatus, and his willingness to re-embrace a character that had defined his life were all gestures that further highlighted the depth of the bond. McMahon's decision to preserve The Undertaker's legacy, even amid the turbulence of the Attitude Era and the legal battles that plagued the organization, speaks to a trust that had endured for decades. In the present day, as McMahon faces scrutiny for allegations that have rocked the industry, the relationship with Calloway takes on a new dimension. The Undertaker has become a moral counterbalance, a conscience that has remained quietly steadfast even as the empire around them swayed. The loyalty that Calloway displayed, standing by McMahon, protecting the company's image, and never defecting, has been tested like never before. In a world where wrestlers often walk away from money or new opportunities, The Undertaker's steadfastness stands out as a rare testament to the power of devotion and the possibility of a relationship that goes beyond the transactional nature of wrestling. As the dust settles over the industry, the story of Mark Calloway and Vincent McMahon will continue to resonate. It is a tale of how a towering figure, once dismissed as just another big man, became the cornerstone of an empire, and a visionary promoter who once saw only a vacant spot on the roster created a character that would transcend time. Together, they forged a bond that defied the norms of an industry built on fleeting alliances, offering a narrative that will inspire future generations to question the very nature of loyalty, ambition, and the stories that bind them. WrestleMania 33 was the moment where the lines between the ring and the boardroom finally blurred. The Undertaker's streak, a myth that had outlasted decades, became a corporate asset that Vince had the final say on. When the decision to break the streak fell on a single night, it was not a question of whether Mark could lose. It was a question of who should receive the glory. Brock Lesnar, a powerhouse in the story, was the chosen conqueror, a man McMahon believed would elevate the brand. Mark, however, voiced a different name, Roman Reigns. Yet the hierarchy remained unquestioned. "It's your show, it's your call," he remembered. His acquiescence to Lesnar, to the end of a legend, became a quiet testament to the absolute weight of McMahon's authority. The night took a personal turn when Mark suffered a severe concussion mid-match. The stadium erupted in cheers, but backstage, the silence was palpable. Mark collapsed, and a hospital bed became the new ring. McMahon, the man who had orchestrated every beat of that event from the gorilla position, abandoned the broadcast. He walked out of the arena in an ambulance, leaving the live audience unaware of the crisis unfolding in the wings. That act was unprecedented. A show was left in limbo, yet the show's heartbeat, Mark's life, was given priority over the televised spectacle. Mark's own words later, "I don't know how that match happened. I have no recollection of any of that," underscored the disconnect between the spectacle and the man behind it. For Mark, it was a moment that cemented the idea that, beyond the contracts and the crowds, Vince was the one who could lift or lower his career with a single decision. The following years unfolded under a new, more fragile light. The documentary, Undertaker: The Last Ride, peeled back layers of the relationship. It showed Mark arriving on the mat, his shoulders creased with age and injury, feeling shame that he was no longer the titan of the ring. McDonald's voice in the footage was a mixture of pragmatism and a peculiar kind of care. "Mark, you need to quit feeling sorry for yourself. Get out there and be who you are," he urged. The phrase "tough love" echoed throughout Mark's memory. It felt less like a promotion and more like a rescue mission, a reminder that McMahon's control over the product also shielded him from self-destruction. When fans demanded a dream match between Mark and Sting, the idea evaporated in the same instant it was proposed. McDonald's refusal to book the bout, citing a lack of creative fit, revealed how the hierarchy stayed intact even in the twilight of Mark's career. Mark did not question the decision. He respected the business judgment. The refusal remained a silent testament to the fact that every storyline, even a legendary one, was filtered through McDonald's vision. The crying Vince meme that followed was more than a fleeting viral clip. It showed Mark's unflinching support for McDonald when the former's face hit the internet with raw emotion. The clip of Mark's tearful face on live broadcast became a symbol of a loyalty that transcended the wrestling narrative. It was a visual shorthand for an unbroken bond that fans could neither comprehend nor challenge. Hall of Fame night in 2022 was a carefully choreographed ceremony. McDonald's decision to induct himself signaled a final act of ownership. He spoke of the company, of the legacy he had cultivated, and of the father figure he had become to Mark. Mark's voice resonated across the ring as he accepted not just the title, but the love, the admiration, and the responsibility that McDonald had placed on his shoulders. The embrace that followed was a tangible human connection, a hand resting on a shoulder, a nod that reverberated through the arena. Mark, in his acceptance speech, echoed those words. Love that he had given to the role was the only currency he would trade. The narrative was abruptly challenged in early 2024 when trafficking allegations surfaced. McDonald stepped down, and WWE moved to distance itself from the mogul's tarnished image. Mark's reaction was a stark deviation from the usual roared support. He chose silence, a private stance that indicated a bond that had never publicly broken. He refrained from joining the chorus of condemnation. Later interviews revealed the glass houses philosophy he had adopted. He defended the friendship, refusing to judge the severity of the claims. To many, it seemed dismissive. To Mark, it was an extension of the same loyalty that had guided him since the first day he stepped under the lights. In late 2024, a corporate move took 6 Feet Under, Mark's independent podcast, into WWE's corporate orbit. A co-host was replaced. His wife, Michelle McCool, took her place. That subtle shift implied a continued partnership, a corporate capture that would likely limit his freedom to speak. Yet his defense of McDonald's remained personal, a plea for understanding, a shield against the storm of public opinion. The very act of standing beside Vince at Super Bowl LIX in February 2025, amid looming civil lawsuits and an unresolved criminal probe, was a deliberate statement. Despite McDonald's frailty and the mounting backlash, Mark stood shoulder to shoulder, acknowledging the pain that followed, but refusing to sever the connection that had defined his life. Each chapter, whether it was the night that ended an era, the emergency that pulled the show to a halt, the film that revealed the depth of their bond, the Hall of Fame ceremony that blended love and authority, or the scandal that tested their moral compass, told a single story. It was a story of a man whose path in professional wrestling was never carved in isolation. It was a story where one man, at the helm, forced the other to confront a myth, to accept a fall, to embrace a more fragile reality. And through it all, Mark remained steadfast, a figure of awe and mystery, but also a pawn whose every move was guided by the hand that had built the kingdom. The bond, unbroken by age or controversy, showed that for Mark, Vince McMahon was not just a manager, but a force that shaped the very identity of the WWE, compelling him to do what he had to do, sometimes to lose, sometimes to survive, and always to remain part of the spectacle. When the curtain first lifted in the early 1990s, the wrestling world was still riding the wave of a charismatic hero, yet the industry's heartbeat was shifting. The once dominant star, Hulk Hogan, was fading, and the WWF's roster was caught between an impending steroid scandal and a desperate need for fresh faces that could carry the brand into the future. Vince McMahon, ever the opportunist, had his sights set on finding a new giant, a performer who could become the next household name. Yet he was particular about the body he wanted on the show, a preference for a muscular, physically imposing athlete. Mark Calaway, then known as Mean Mark Callis, was a lanky, red-haired worker in WCW, a mid-card talent whose potential was underutilized. The first meeting between Calaway and McMahon was canceled, a reminder that the door was not open by default. The wrestler had to earn his place inside the ring of corporate decision. McMahon's rejection did not stop Calaway. He quit WCW after a brutal conversation with Ole Anderson, who told him that no one would pay money to see him wrestle. That rejection lit a fire. He turned his sights toward the WWF, a house where McMahon could see him as a future titan. But the WWF's creative climate was raw, and the idea of a new monster was far from guaranteed. McMahon was skeptical until he saw Calaway's performance, his long strides, his unapologetic stoicism, and the way he could silence a crowd. In a moment that would echo for decades, McMahon began to sketch the concept of a character who would be a dead man, an almost mythical being that could walk the line between life and death, a force that could be manipulated to elevate the company's storytelling. The creation of The Undertaker was as much a technical exercise in branding as it was a psychological experiment. McMahon micromanaged the early days, dictating every detail, from the slow, deliberate zombie walk to the low, resonant voice that carried the weight of silence. Calaway learned to sell the character, to embody the idea of a dead man walking. It was a learning process. He was the student and McMahon the director, each shaping the other. This early collaboration forged an understanding that would become a bedrock of loyalty. In exchange for the financial stability and fame that McMahon could offer, Calaway provided the creative canvas and backstage consistency that would allow the company to thrive during the Monday Night Wars. The mid-90s brought a clash of brands. When WCW launched Monday Nitro, they lured away stars like Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and even Bret Hart with lucrative offers. The WWF, meanwhile, could not match the immediate payouts but offered a stable platform for creative control. Calaway chose the latter. He believed that the WWF, under McMahon's direction, could book him more effectively, turning him into a monster rather than a mid-card filler. This decision was rooted not only in financial prudence — wrestlers often squander money — but in an understanding of McMahon's vision for a brand that could sustain a story on a grand scale. Behind the scenes, McMahon cultivated an environment that rewarded loyalty. The Bone Street Crew, a symbol etched on Calloway's abdomen, signified membership in a backstage fraternity that ensured fidelity to the company. Calloway's role as the judge in the wrestler's court underscored this culture. The court allowed wrestlers to resolve disputes themselves, a system McMahon sanctioned to keep the locker room in order while he managed larger corporate battles. These practices created a hidden hierarchy, where loyalty was both a currency and a requirement. The late 90s and early 2000s were a period of dramatic creative experiments. The Higher Power storyline of 1999, wherein The Undertaker performed a ritualistic crucifixion of Austin, seemed to elevate the character to a supernatural pedestal. Yet the reveal that the Higher Power was none other than McMahon himself — "It was me, Austin" — showed that the story's final punchline was a power play. For Calloway, this was a testament to his obedience. He followed Vince's instructions unquestioningly. It reinforced the notion that Calloway's place in the company was not about individual fame, but about serving the larger narrative engine. As the years progressed, The Undertaker's popularity reached new heights. His matches became a staple of the WWF and later the WWE, and he became synonymous with the company's ability to create drama that transcended the ring. The emotional impact of the "crying Vince" phenomenon, where McMahon's tears were captured during a backstage moment, reflected the vulnerability that even a figure of control could experience. These moments showed that The Undertaker was not merely a prop, but an emotional touchstone for McMahon. The dynamic between them was a delicate balance. The Undertaker's loyalty was a lifeline for McMahon, and in turn, Vince's trust allowed Calloway to endure the company's tumultuous times. By the time the legal and moral crisis emerged in 2023, the bond between the two had deepened into a quasi-familial alliance. When allegations of sex trafficking surfaced against McMahon, Calloway's defense hinged on what he had experienced on the road: the respect and care that had been afforded him, the opportunities to perform and to grow. He adopted the glass houses philosophy, arguing that everyone has skeletons and no one should judge. While this stance drew criticism, criminal allegations cannot be dismissed as mere sins. It underscored the psychological defense mechanism that often surfaces in intense fraternities or abusive power dynamics. Calloway's defense was not about denial of facts. It was about prioritizing personal experience over the broader narrative presented by the allegations. The journey from a lanky, overlooked worker in WCW to a global icon was paved with the hand of Vince McMahon. McMahon's willingness to invest in a concept that had no precedent, to shape Calloway's character meticulously, and to create an environment that rewarded unwavering loyalty, forced Calloway into a role that many would later emulate. The Undertaker was not only a creation, he became a testament to the power of corporate control in wrestling. Every time Calloway entered the ring, he walked under McMahon's directives, sometimes a silent acceptance, sometimes an unspoken rebellion. Yet the partnership endured, illustrating that The Undertaker's longevity lay not in a single match, but in a decades-long covenant of obedience and sacrifice. In the present, as the wrestling world faces scrutiny and legal battles, the legacy of Calloway's loyalty remains a point of contention. The legal crisis of 2023-2024 brought a new dimension to the discussion: whether the glass houses defense could withstand the weight of proven crimes. Calloway's unwavering support for McMahon rooted in personal gratitude, stands in stark contrast to the documented abuse. Yet it illustrates the profound psychological complexity of a relationship that began in the early 1990s and has continued to evolve. The Undertaker's forced performances, the rituals, the silent obedience, all these elements weave a narrative where the figure of a dead man was never purely his own, but a vessel shaped by McMahon's vision. And in this continuous dance, The Undertaker remains revealed, not only as a monster, but as a living testament to the power of a forced legacy. From lanky mid-card talent to the towering icon of the WWE, Mark Calloway's journey as The Undertaker has always been a testament to the interplay of personal ambition, corporate vision, and the binding force of loyalty.
Vince McMahon's meticulous crafting of the dead man mythology and the steadfast devotion he cultivated among his performers forged a partnership that could withstand the shifting tides of the wrestling industry, from the Monday Night Wars to the modern era of scrutiny and scandal. Yet this very bond, once a source of mutual empowerment, has become a point of profound moral and psychological tension, illustrating that The Undertaker's legacy is as much a product of obedience and opportunity as it is of his own performance. In the end, the dead man walking under the lights continues to embody the paradox of a legacy that is simultaneously a monument to endurance and a reminder that the true cost of spectacle often resides behind the curtain.